These are dark times, there is no denying. Our world has perhaps faced no greater threat than it does today. But I say this to our citizenry. We, ever your servants, will continue to defend your liberty and repel the forces that seek to take it from you.
You're listening to the Steven Tauriello Show, building a platform of liberty for people in search of truth with a dash of hope and a life worth living. The Steven Tauriello Show. And now, here's Steven.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the show. As always, thank you for tuning in. So, I think it is day 3 of the Trump trial. And while Donald Trump is in court, Joe Biden is hitting the campaign trail. He's going to all the major swing states in Pennsylvania, doing all kinds of speeches and rallies. This is what they wanted, folks. This is what they wanted. This is the plan. This is all being brought forth by the Biden administration. This is an election interference strategy, just like we've been saying for months. And, you know, I've been on social media for the last couple hours just... I find it so sad that Democrats are so gleeful. You ever heard of the term useful idiots? Useful idiots was a term used during the Lenin era, and they were actually people that really ushered in the fascism during the 1930s, before World War II. And looking around, and something I've noticed is, you know the old saying, history doesn't repeat itself, but it certainly rhymes? Well, that's kind of what we're watching now. I'm looking around, and I find it so sad how Democrats are so gleeful about ushering in fascism in the United States of America. They really are the useful idiots of our day. The lack of self-awareness, it truly is astounding. And so this case happening in New York is a real miscarriage of justice. It's a sad day for this country, and it's all being brought forth by Joe Biden, his administration, and the useful idiots, which are now the leftists in the Democrat Party that support this. This is not justice. This is not democracy. That's not what any of this is. This is a show trial, very similar to the show trials of Moscow, Russia, in the 1930s. So, I went and dug up I did some research in New York's law and when a judge is required to recuse himself. And it says, in the state of New York, judges are required to recuse themselves from any case where their impartiality might reasonably be questioned. This includes scenarios where they have a personal bias or prejudice concerning a party, or personal knowledge of disputed evidentiary facts concerning the proceeding. Additionally, judges must recuse themselves in cases where they, their spouse, or a person within the third degree of relationship to either of them, or the spouse of such a person. Number 1 is a party to the proceeding or an officer, director, or trustee of a party. Number 2 is acting as a lawyer in the proceeding. Number 3 is known by the judge to have an interest that could be substantially affected by the outcome of the proceeding. Number 4 is to the judge's knowledge likely to be a material witness in the proceeding. Judges also need to consider their financial interests and recuse themselves if they have a financial interest in the subject matter in controversy or in a party to the proceeding. If a judge's impartiality might reasonably be questioned, or if recusal is requested by a party and the judge believes there is no basis for recusal, the judge must disclose on the record the basis of the judge's denial of the recusal. The rules governing judicial conduct in New York aim to ensure fairness, prevent any conflicts of interest, and maintain public confidence in the judiciary's integrity. Ladies and gentlemen, this judge almost violates all of this. There is no way that this judge should remain on this case. He should never have even taken the case. There's a reason why this judge is refusing to recuse himself. And I think we all know why. It's because he's on a mission. He's on a mission, and he wants his legacy to be the guy that interfered in the 2024 election to help Joe Biden get elected. That's what he wants. And who knows, it may even go deeper than that. If somebody in the Republican Party had some balls, they would be requesting some documentation, or they would be doing a proper investigation into this scenario. But the Republicans have all seemed to but abandon Donald Trump and their party. They are nowhere to be found. They actually went home for a week after making that very, very atrocious, absolutely atrocious vote for the foreign spending package, sending another $95, almost $100 billion to foreign countries. They took a week off because of that. Who knows? Maybe they're going to go home and talk to their constituents. I highly doubt it, because their constituents most likely do not agree with what they just voted for. So the Republicans aren't helping Donald Trump. Donald Trump is on his own in there, and this should infuriate everybody. Donald Trump is surrounded by pure evil. He's surrounded by a judge that is clearly biased, clearly partial on this entire case, and should recuse himself, but is refusing because he's on a mission to make sure he properly interferes in the election and gives Joe Biden a heads up. There is no doubt that every single person in this country can look at this case and see that this is not justice. This is not a real trial. This is a show trial, very similar to what they did in Russia in the 1930s. This is what is going on in New York City courtrooms. This judge, this entire case is bogus. And Jonathan Turley actually feels the same way. Jonathan Turley is a legal scholar, and he absolutely nails the whole process that's playing out right now, right in front of our eyes. I always knew the Democrat Party would be the ones to usher in fascism in this country. I just never would have believed they would do it with such glee, with such happiness and excitement. Who would have ever thought that fascism and totalitarianism would be ushered into this country in such a gleeful manner by the Democratic Party? I never in a million years would have thought that. I knew it was going to be the Democrats to push this country to the edge, because that is their entire existence, is to progress, right? They are the progressive party. It's nonstop progress to them. They call it progress, but really what it is, it's actually regress. They actually progress so much that they're actually regressive. This is why we have segregation in colleges. This is why we have anti-Semitism running rampant throughout the colleges in our country. And so I'm going to play some audio from Jonathan Turley where he actually nails this entire case. And honestly, he's quite shocked why this case is even in a New York City court. Here, check this out.
Well, that's not unexpected. I think if you poll people and ask if Trump was responsible for the bubonic plague, you'd end up with the same 35%. I mean, we have these hard numbers on either end of the poll when it comes to Trump. They don't move, no matter what the subject is. What is clear is, in this case, Trump is right. I mean, this is an embarrassment. I mean, the fact that we are actually talking about this case being presented in a New York courtroom leaves me in utter disbelief. I mean, the arguments today did in fact capture all the problems here. You know, you had this misdemeanor under state law that had run out. This is going back to related to the 2016 election. And they zapped it back into life by alleging that there was a campaign finance violation under the federal laws that doesn't exist. The Department of Justice doesn't view it this way. But on top of that, you've got these tough factual issues that were laid out well by the Trump team, saying someone else designated this as a legal expense, and he was actually paid far in excess of this because of this was a legal account. But also keep in mind, this is what Hillary Clinton's people did. You know, remember when they funded the Steele dossier, which they denied to reporters, they put it as a legal expense, and then they fought the eventual fine that they received from the federal government, saying, but it was a legal expense. But now you've got some of the same Democrats supporting this bizarre theory.
Yep, he's exactly right. This is what doesn't make sense. The biggest problem conservatives and Republicans have on this entire jihad to get Donald Trump is the utter unfairness and inequality under the color of law. Okay, this is what we're watching right now. People don't care that you're charging Donald Trump with the crime. What people care about is that he's the only person being charged with the crime when they're watching other politicians like Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden do the exact same thing. They are the masters of projection. It is the inequality of justice that people are worried about. I want to explain to you the reason why people are utterly shocked when it comes to Donald Trump being charged with what he's being charged with. I want to read you something. Here's a summary of what Hillary Clinton did and her campaign with the fake Steele dossier. So originally, research into Donald Trump was contracted by the conservative website The Washington Free Beacon during the 2016 Republican primaries. After Trump became the presumptive Republican nominee, the Democratic National Committee, the DNC, and Hillary Clinton's campaign, through their law firm, Perkins Coie, hired the research firm Fusion GPS to continue the investigation into Trump's activities and connections. Fusion GPS, in turn, hired Christopher Steele, a former British intelligence officer, to compile what became known as the Steele dossier. The payments for this research, you ready for this? The payments for this research were made through Perkins Coie and were reported by the campaign and the DNC as legal fees. This is a common practice as law firms often oversee a variety of contracted services for campaigns, which may include legal advice, compliance, research, and more. The nature of these disbursements was broadly categorized under legal services, which later led to debates and criticism over the transparency and the specifics of campaign spending disclosure. So Hillary Clinton did exactly what Donald Trump did. And where is she at? Well, she's out there on every single media outlet she can, talking about how Donald Trump is worse than Hitler and he's a dictator. These people, the lack of self-awareness that we see in this, the lack of projection is mind-blowing. You have Joe Biden that willfully retained classified documents. This is a fact. I know you lefties are listening. Fact check this. Joe Biden willfully retained classified documents he was not supposed to have. Fact. Joe Biden disclosed classified information with unauthorized sources. That is a violation of the Espionage Act. That is a crime. Where's Joe Biden? Well, he's not being charged because he's too old. And so you're not going to charge Joe Biden, but you are going to charge Donald Trump. And Joe Biden was never supposed to have classified documents because Joe Biden was never president. He's not protected under the Presidential Records Act. These are key facts that everybody can see, everybody can understand, and they don't understand why you can have two people commit the same crime, but only one person is being charged. Hillary Clinton paid for the Steele dossier with campaign funds and marked it as legal services. That is exactly what they are claiming Donald Trump did. That he paid Stormy Daniels with campaign funds and marked it down as legal services when it should have been campaign funds. And Hillary Clinton's out there on the news talking about Donald Trump being a dictator. The gall on these people. You want to know why they do this? It's because they can get away with it. It's because we have a feckless, worthless media, well now officially state-run media. They are the media apparatus for the Democrat Party, the Washington establishment, and the Biden administration. Because if we had an honest media, they'd be like, whoa. Wait a minute, Donald Trump's being charged for this, and this is exactly what Hillary Clinton did with the Steele dossier. You know that dossier that led to 2.5 years and millions upon millions of taxpayer dollars for a fake, made-up story? Yeah, completely almost nullifying half of Donald Trump's first term. 2 years. The American people had to go through the fake Russia collusion hoax for almost 2 years because of what Hillary Clinton did, and it was all paid for by campaign funds, and they marked it down as legal services. And what'd she have to do? She had to pay a fine. This is the two-tier justice system that everybody is watching, and it's just a shame that Democrats ushered this type of system into our country so gleefully and so excited. This is what boggles my mind. These people are literally destroying our justice system, creating a two-tier justice system, allowing Joe Biden to use the justice system and the courts in New York City as a tool so that he can be on the campaign trail while Donald Trump is locked up inside courtrooms for weeks. This is all a plan, and this will go down as the biggest conspiracy to violate people's civil rights in U.S. history. When Donald Trump wins this election, and he will, every single person involved in this entire strategy needs to be investigated and charged with conspiracy to violate people's rights. I am dead serious about this. Why? Because if you don't, then these people are going to get away with it, and they're going to do it again. You have to understand that Republicans they're not built for this type of stuff, folks. They can't do this. They don't know how to go on offense. Democrats know this. And what happens when you know your opponent is not going to hit you back? Well, you're probably going to pummel them. And that is exactly what Democrats are doing. They know Republicans are feckless cowards. And so they do these things because they know they're going to get away with it. The only way this stops, the only way we stop this fascism that's entering this country, this two-tier justice system, this police state, is when Democrats are held accountable. Every single one of these judges, prosecutors, Joe Biden, anybody in the Biden administration, everybody needs to be investigated. All internal communications needs to be subpoenaed. All the emails, texts, phone calls, everything needs to be gathered, investigated, and if this turns out to be a coordinated effort to interfere in the 2024 election, the people's election, that Joe Biden weaponized the justice system in order to kneecap Donald Trump in his campaign, then I'm sorry, folks, but every single one of these people needs to be charged, indicted, arrested, and imprisoned for conspiracy to violate people's voting rights. That's people's civil rights. They have a right to vote for Donald Trump. Who the people pick as president is not up to judges. It's not up to prosecutors. It's not up to Joe Biden. It is up to the American people. And the American people have a right to vote for Donald Trump or to vote against Donald Trump. But this is not the right of Judge Merchan. This is not the right of Jack Smith or Joe Biden or any prosecutor or any judge or any president for that matter. What Joe Biden is doing to this country is disgusting. This guy cannot run on the issues because he has completely destroyed this place from day one. He is a human wrecking ball, and he can't beat Donald Trump on the issues, and he knows this. Democrats know this. And so what do? They play hardball. They weaponize the justice system, just like they did in the impeachment, both of them, just like they did during Donald Trump's entire first term. Lawfare is what they're doing. Matthew Colangelo, and they want to pretend like Joe Biden, there's no connection here. Matthew Colangelo gave the opening statements in the first day of this trial. Matthew Colangelo was sent from the Department of Justice to work with Alvin Bragg on this case. This is Joe Biden's number 3 employee at the Department of Justice that left, gave up his cushy position at the DOJ to go help Alvin Bragg. He is the direct link to Joe Biden in the White House and the DOJ. And there needs to be consequences. There needs to be accountability, period, or this is never going to stop. I'll be damned if we're going to lose our country because the Democrats want to usher in fascism because they don't like Donald Trump. I'll be damned. Do these people ever think? Do they ever ask themselves, well, what happens if Joe Biden wins? That means we officially used the justice system to win elections. That means that we just gave judges, we just gave prosecutors, we just gave the United States Department of Justice the ability to sway elections. And Donald Trump will say that the 2024 election was rigged against him by lawfare, and he would be right to say it. Democrats are not doing themselves any favors. I know they're excited. They're all gleeful. They want to see Donald Trump pay whatever it is that they want him. I've never seen such sickness. These people are sick. Trump derangement syndrome has completely taken over these people's conscience. They are deranged. All these people are deranged. This is a mental illness, and I've been saying this for years now. Trump derangement syndrome is real. These people have been consumed by it, and they are using our justice system in order to get their desired outcome, which is Joe Biden winning the election. We can't, folks, and the sad part about it all is that it's Joe Biden. This administration is awful. So you're going to rig elections, you're going to use judges, you're going to weaponize the justice system for Joe Biden for another 4 years of this? This is insane. What is happening in the colleges and universities with this anti-Semitism that is just spreading like a cancer all throughout the country is eerily similar to Germany in the 1930s. Not in the literal sense, like they're not carrying swastikas, or though maybe some are. But when you look at these videos and you see what they're saying, the sheer hatred for Jews, and they're calling them Zionists, cheering on Hamas, a terrorist organization, this is what Joe Biden and the Democrats have brought to this country. This is the America Democrats want for you. And I'm sorry, folks, but I want nothing to do with this. What these people have done to this country in just 3.5 years is so sick. It is so disgusting. And I really am shocked most of all on how fast it happened. This is accelerating at an accelerating pace. This is insane, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. So if you needed more proof that this persecution against Trump is being facilitated by Biden to help his election bid, I give you Mr. Matthew Colangelo, the number 3 at the Department of Justice that specifically left the DOJ, his cushy job at the DOJ, to go help Alvin Bragg persecute Joe Biden's chief political rival. So I want you to think about this. A member, an employee of Joe Biden's Department of Justice, the number 3 high up, leaves his cushy job at the Department of Justice to go help persecute and prosecute and try to imprison Joe Biden's political rival. This is what is happening inside that courtroom in New York. You got a judge that refuses to recuse himself. The bias and the animosity is so blatantly obvious for everybody to see, but he refuses to recuse himself and says that he thinks he can be impartial. This is insane. His daughter is a consultant for Democratic campaigns. And if that wasn't enough, the judge himself donated to Joe Biden's campaign. What the hell is this? This is not justice. I don't know what this is, but this is like something straight out of George Orwell's 1984. It's like we are living in a real George Orwell novel right now. Like back in Germany in the 1930s. This is insane. And if this is justice, then I'm sorry, but this is not the America that the framers intended. This is not the justice system that I want. I mean, when you have an entire system that works in conjunction with one another in order to sway elections, and how many people actually think Donald Trump is going to get a fair trial when he's surrounded by people that hate him and want to see him in prison, like a bloodthirsty mob? No different than the mobs swarming all the colleges and universities right now, screaming Antifada from the river to the sea, screaming, "We support Hamas," a terrorist organization. These are all the same people. It's all in the same Marxist realm. These people have ushered in Marxist totalitarianism with a police state into the United States of America. This is what we're watching. And if we don't fix this, if Donald Trump does not win this election and Democrats are able to sway elections and rig elections using the justice system, then I'm sorry, folks, but it's over. Then the United States of America will officially be a third world banana republic. And what's most infuriating is that the American people can't do anything about it. They have no recourse that they can take in order to get their country back. Because you just took the last thing that they had in order to change the direction their country's going in, their voting rights. When you have a political system, you have a machine like the Washington establishment, and you have a political party like the Democratic Party, when they are able to sway elections and they rig elections using all the tools that they have to their availability that we gave them in order to get their preferred candidate across the finish line, then I'm sorry, folks, but it's over. That is the last line of defense the American people have. That is their democracy. And who would have ever thought that it would have been democracy dying like this? Who would have ever thought that fascism and totalitarianism would have been ushered into the United States with a smile from the Democrat Party, from Democrats, from Americans, millions of people smiling gleefully, saying, yes, use the justice system. Nobody's above the law. Use it. We know Joe Biden can't win. We know Joe Biden sucks as a president, but we want Donald Trump to pay for his crimes. Nobody's above the law. Of course there's people above the law. I just explained to you what Joe Biden did. He broke the law. He's not being charged. I explained to you what Hillary Clinton did. She broke the law. She wasn't charged. Still not charged. Not only is she not charged, but she's out there on every single cable outlet she can find on how Donald Trump should be charged, on how good it is that Donald Trump is facing justice. This is sick. This is like some real George Orwell stuff, man. And Democrats are doing it all with a smile. It's a shame. Definitely a shame. And if you don't think that Democrats are serious about getting rid of Donald Trump permanently, these people, I said this months ago, these people won't be happy until Donald Trump is swinging from a light pole in the streets of New York City. Hanging by his neck in the streets of New York City. They will not be happy. And even after that, even if that were to happen, heaven forbid, but this is the type of stuff we're watching, and you know I'm right. When I say this, I know it sounds gruesome, but you know I'm right. The pure hatred these people have for Donald Trump. The mob. These people are like a fascist, bloodthirsty mob, and they want vengeance. They want payback. They want blood. And if you think I'm being hyperbolic and that these people don't want to see Donald Trump dead, Benny Thompson is introducing a bill to the House of Representatives that essentially removes Donald Trump's Secret Service detail. Think about that. Removes Donald Trump's Secret Service, his protection. The only thing keeping Donald Trump safe from the mob is the Secret Service. And they're doing a great job. Because I'll tell you what, me and my wife talk about it all the time, how worried we are for Donald Trump and his safety. Because this is how insane the media has made people in this country. This is all the media's fault. The media is behind every single bit of this, with their rhetoric, their propaganda, and their hatred that they spew 24/7. Rachel Maddow, Joe and Mika. These people are responsible for all the hatred that is flowing through our country. They are responsible. They're responsible for the protests, the pro-Hamas protests in the streets, the anti-Semitism. They're responsible for the guy lighting himself on fire in front of the New York courthouse. Oh, yeah, that's on the media. But this bill Benny Thompson just introduced is proof that these people want to see Donald Trump dead. So you have one part of the Democrat Party that is trying to imprison Donald Trump by using lawfare, and you have the other side, the legislative side, inside the walls of Congress, trying to remove the only thing keeping him safe. What do you call that, folks? They want to see Donald Trump dead. What, so Donald Trump's going to go into prison with no Secret Service? We all seen what happened to Derek Chauvin a few months ago. Stabbed 20 times in prison. What do you think's going to happen to Donald Trump in prison? Which, trust me, they're trying. These Democrats are not joking. These people are not holding anything back. They're not playing games. This isn't just, partisan politics. No, these people want to see Donald Trump in prison, and they want to see him dead. And they know the only way they can do that is by getting rid of his Secret Service. And now you have a Trump-deranged lunatic, a Democrat, inside the walls of our Congress, introducing legislation to remove his Secret Service. This is crazy, folks. These people have went full-blown totalitarian. And you have an angry, bloodthirsty mob out there in the streets, all across the country, in all these major cities, in all these major colleges and universities, chanting the stuff Nazis were chanting. Chanting from the river to the sea, talking about eradicating Jews. You know, at first, it just started with from the river to the sea, it's pro-Palestine. They call these pro-Palestinian protests. But when you're watching the footage, they're chanting support for Hamas, which Hamas is the terrorist organization that slaughtered 1,200 Jews. So they are cheering, holding up their flag in support of Hamas. This is the America Democrats want for you, man. And I'm telling you, folks, if we do not show them that it's we the people that run this country, not the Democrats and their angry mob, then it's over. Every single person must go out and vote in this election in 8 months, 7 months. If you don't, then that is essentially handing this country over to this radical, authoritarian, totalitarian, fascist political party called the Democratic Party. I'm sorry, it's not the Democratic Party of JFK anymore. How do I know that? Well, because JFK's nephew, RFK Jr., has to run as an independent because the Democrats won't let him run because they're afraid he's going to beat Joe Biden. So much for the defenders of democracy. That is just proof that the Democratic Party is no longer the party of old. It is not JFK's party anymore. This thing has morphed into some weird fascistic mob, right? That will stop at nothing. It is an activist party, is a filled with a bunch of lunatic progressive fascists that are using the party in order to gain and retain power. And you wait until these people get power. You've seen what it's like with them just having the Senate. Wait till they get control of all the branches. The House, the Senate, and the White House. There won't be anything left of this country. The country we knew growing up will be so far gone and it'll probably never come back. Ask RFK. This guy is out there trying to tell people that it's actually Joe Biden that is the biggest threat to democracy. A Democrat calling out Joe Biden as the biggest threat to democracy on CNN. You know how they do the loaded questions. Oh, Donald Trump did so-and-so, and, so-and-so said he's the biggest threat to democracy. Do you agree? He straight up said, no, I think Joe Biden's the biggest threat to democracy. And trust me, they did not like hearing that. You guys, I think I played it for you the other day. Joe Biden and his administration and his party are the biggest threats to democracy. I hate saying that word because we're not a democracy. But what that essentially means, and Democrats don't even know what democracy means. What that means is the way that we vote, the way that we participate in our election process. That's essentially it. A full democracy is, we can't have a full democracy. That's essentially what Democrats want. Full democracy is essentially mob rule. It's whatever the majority of the mob wants. That is a full democracy. We don't run like that. That's not how this country's run. We are a constitutional republic with a democratic representation, which means we We vote for our representatives, majority wins, and those representatives represent their constituents. But all of the representatives and the government, the president and all three branches, must abide by the Constitution. This is why we are a constitutional republic. The Constitution trumps all. No pun intended. But that is what we are. So Democrats, when they say a threat to democracy, what they really mean to say is that Donald Trump is a threat to their party. Donald Trump is a threat to this weird fascistic regime that has been built in the last 8 years that they call the Democratic Party. And I think we should start calling it the Democratic oligarchy. That's what I think it is. It is like an oligarchy. They have their higher-ups that send messages down. You got people funding different protests that go out and pressure judges and call out judges, trying to assassinate them in their homes. This is an oligarchy. They want sheer power, and they want a one-party state. They want to rule everything. I'm so sick of Democrats projecting everything that they're doing onto their opponents. Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, Chuck Schumer, all these people, this entire party, the media too. The Democratic media do nothing but project their guiltiness, project the things that they're guilty for onto others. That's what they do. That's all we've been watching. The exact same thing that they're accusing Donald Trump of, but only Donald Trump is being charged. Joe Biden got caught doing the exact same thing they're accusing Donald Trump of doing, but only Donald Trump is being charged. They want a system where they get to pick and choose who is the exception and who is not. And Donald Trump is the exception to everything. He gets no due process. He gets no attorney-client privilege. He gets no innocent until proven guilty. He does not get the same rights as everybody else. They think of Donald Trump as an unequal. They don't want Donald Trump having anything. They want the mob to be able to attack him. This is what the gag order's for. You had a judge that gagged him so that he can't talk about the people that are trying to imprison him. Meanwhile, these people like Stormy Daniels and Michael Cohen can go all out on the media, trash on Trump, lie about Trump, tell lies to the media, write about lies, release articles filled with lies. So they get to say all the stuff that they want about Donald Trump. You have a judge that's discussing this case with his daughter. Yes, the Democratic Party consultant that's making money off of this case. This is how insane and just unhinged these people have become, and everybody can see it. And so while Donald Trump's wrapped up in court, Joe Biden is out there on the campaign trail, soaking it up, telling nothing but lies. And this guy got caught in yet another lie. So you guys, Papua New Guinea Prime Minister blasts Joe Biden for false claims about his uncle being eaten by cannibals during World War II. This just sounds like something Joe Biden would say. Like, Joe Biden is everything. Anytime he's telling a story or he's talking to somebody or he's talking to a group of people, he'll always say that, oh yeah, I used to do that, or I know that. Like he was a trucker, he used to drive a tank in World War II. Like, everything that this guy just lies. This guy is a habitual liar. And he lied about his grandpa being eaten by cannibals in Papua New Guinea in World War II. Like, who says this stuff, man? Seriously. To a point to where the Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea had to come out and say pretty much that this guy's a liar and that we don't appreciate you characterizing our people like this. And what do you know? Did the media even mention this? Nope. Did Joe Biden apologize? Nope. So Prime Minister James Marape of Papua New Guinea issued a scathing critic of Joe Biden on Sunday following comments made by Biden that insinuated the wartime fate of his uncle involved cannibalistic acts by the natives of New Guinea. Joe Biden accused New Guinea cannibals of likely eating his uncle Bozy when his plane crashed on the tropical island decades ago. On Wednesday, Biden was interviewed by reporters on the tarmac as he was departing Scranton, Pennsylvania. The shocking story concerns the final days of dear Uncle Bozy. Ambrose Finnegan, who we called him Uncle Bozy, he was shot down. He was Army Air Corps before there was an Air Force. He flew a single-engine plane, reconnaissance flights over Papua New Guinea, and he volunteered when someone couldn't make it, and he got shot down in an area where there were a lot of cannibals, said Joe Biden. You know, the sad thing is you can't believe anything this guy says. And so this is why I say when Democrats are the masters of projecting, remember when they said that Donald Trump is guilty of telling like 500,000 lies or something? Like every single time that Donald Trump spoke, they would say, oh, it's a lie. Here you have Joe Biden that literally lies every time he speaks. He lies about lying. And does the media say anything? Do they fact check anything? Are there articles, countless articles of Joe Biden lies again, making it the 55,000th time that Joe Biden lies? No, it's all fake, folks. We're living in a fake reality. Like we have fake media, you have fake politicians, you have a fake government, you have a fake separation of powers, a fake justice system. Everything is not real. It's all a facade. It's all a mirage. This is why nothing makes sense. This is why the heroes are villains and the villains are heroes. Everything's opposite. Where you have people chanting death to the Jews, death to Israel, and death to America, and that's perfectly acceptable. But you go out there during the BLM riots and you say all lives matter, and you were probably killed right there on the streets, and the media, and if you weren't killed, the media would scold you and the mob would come after you until you were in prison. This is the America we're living in, and Joe Biden can lie with the punity, and the media just goes along with it. Did the media mention that Joe Biden lied when he told people that his grandpa was eaten by cannibals in New Guinea? No. So Joe Biden later reported the story about Uncle Bozy during his remarks in Pittsburgh to a group of steelworkers. My Uncle Bozy, he was an Army Air Corps before the Air Force came along. He flew those single-engine planes as reconnaissance over war zones, and he got shot down in New Guinea. And they never found the body because there used to be a lot of cannibals, for real, in that part of New Guinea. Every time this guy says for real, or it's the truth, or I'm not joking, or no joke, or I'm serious, anytime he says something like that to where he has to like reaffirm the people that he's not lying, he's actually lying. So this is a good tactic that you can use to tell when Joe Biden's lying, is when he says no joke, or I'm being serious, I'm not being hyperbolic. When he says something like that, that is a clear tell sign that he is either has lied or he's about ready to lie. He's a liar, man. He really is a liar. He's a politician. Could you imagine Joe Biden getting in a plane and flying over Papua New Guinea? This guy hasn't contributed anything to this country. He's been on the government dole since he was 29 years old. He is worthless. He's contributed nothing. The guy is worthless, and he's accomplished nothing. But yet he's president somehow. This just goes to show you how screwed up our country is. When you can elect somebody like Joe Biden, if you actually believe he was legitimately elected, folks, every day that goes by, I believe less and less that election was legitimate. Joe Biden runs this country. This administration is acting like an illegitimate administration. This is what illegitimate administrations do. They lie, they cover up the truth, they target their opponents. If Joe Biden won that election legitimately, he wouldn't have to target all of his political opponents. In fact, he wouldn't even have to go after Donald Trump. He could just run on the issues and run on his accomplishments. How about this, Joe Biden? How about this, Democrats? Why don't you just help the country focus on the issues and actually fix problems for this country instead of creating them? And maybe you wouldn't have to weaponize the justice system for you to win elections. Maybe you wouldn't have to cheat in elections. Maybe you wouldn't have to lie to people or deceive them or project all the time onto your opponents. Maybe you could just run on issues, accomplish things, and then you would get elected. But no, these people can never run on their issues. They can never run on what they really want for this country. They always have to lie, deceive, and project in order to get elected. I'm telling you, you'll notice now after I said that. Every time you hear a Democrat campaigning, they'll never talk about their voting record. They'll never talk about their ideas. They'll never talk about what they support, what they've done in the past, nothing. All they do is they create boogeymans. They create boogeymans and they say, I'll keep you safe from the boogeyman. Or I am not the boogeyman, so you should vote for me. That's what they do. They trick people. Oh, I want free health care. Joe Biden's buying votes right now. Telling college students, I'm going to pay for your college debt. I'm going to forgive your student loans. Even though the Supreme Court said, no, Joe Biden, you can't do that. And what does he do? He does it anyways. and they say Donald Trump's the dictator. So according to official records, 3 men failed to emerge from the sinking wreck and were lost in the crash. 1 crew member survived. The Biden White House later admitted that the story was mostly a lie, which it was. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said Biden lying about cannibals eating his uncle was a proud moment for him. What? This is what I'm talking about. It's like nothing makes sense. Joe Biden lying to people was a proud moment for him? Like these people, and the reason why they get away with these lies is we have a media that is in the tank for this political party. The media has chosen sides. And so this is the problem we're having. If we had an honest media, we wouldn't even be here right now. Donald Trump would be finishing out his 2nd term, and the country would be moving on normally, peacefully, and prosperous. But no, because the media has chosen sides, and they have become political hacks, we have to deal with all this carnage, misery, and agony from a illegitimate administration. So I'm going to get back into this. I'm going to just finish this up. I'm going to go ahead and skim to the bottom here. So the Prime Minister's office released a statement expressing dismay over Biden's comments, emphasizing that such narratives unjustly label the nation and its history. Marape told the Associated Press, quote, "While the president's remarks may have been a slip of the tongue, however, my country does not deserve to be labeled as such. Quote, World War II was not the doing of my people. However, they were needlessly dragged into a conflict that was not their doing," Marape added. The remains of World War II lie scattered all over Papua New Guinea, including the plane that carried President Biden's uncle, Marape said. Perhaps giving President Biden's comments and the strong reaction from PNG and other parts of the world, it is time for the USA to find as many remains of World War II in PNG as possible, including those of servicemen who lost their lives like Ambrose Finnegan, he said. The theaters of war in PNG and Solomon Islands are many and littered with the remains of World War II, including human remains, plane wrecks, shipwrecks, tunnels, and bombs. Our people daily live with the fear of being killed by undetonated bombs of World War II. Papua New Guinea academics are blasting Joe Biden for his baseless cannibalism story. This guy is such a fake fraud, man. We got to get Joe Biden out of here. I hate getting on. I really don't like doing these shows all angry. I really don't. Like, it really bothers me. But I'm like you. I am no different than you guys. I get so pissed off when I read these stories. I get so frustrated. And I get depressed too about it sometimes. I know it's not hard to get this type of defeatist attitude and and you want to just give up. But you can't give up, folks, because that is what they're trying to do. They're purposely trying to demoralize us. That is what they want. They want you to give up and become good little constituents. They just want you to conform. Democrats don't want unity. They want conformity. And by them constantly going on these demoralization campaigns, they're trying to get you to conform to their ideas, to their ideology, to become part of their Borg, all right? Part of their matrix. We don't want that, and we're not going to do it. But I could totally understand. I get frustrated too, and that's why I hate getting on here and just going on these rants. I really don't like it. I don't feel like they're very informative for you, but it's like I don't start it that way, but I can't help but just get pissed off about all this stuff. So, personally, I believe, what I really believe this entire Donald Trump court thing is a distraction. I mean, not only is it, Joe Biden and the Department of Justice using the justice system to get Joe Biden across the finish line, but I also think it's a distraction to distract people from Joe Biden's failures. Joe Biden has been on the campaign trail. The media has been 24/7 on Donald Trump. And so now Joe Biden gets to go out there on the campaign trail and tell all of his lies, like this Papua New Guinea lie, and the Amtrak lie, and the lie about his father, and the lie about him being a truck driver, and the lie about his family, the lie about his son getting killed in Iraq, all of this stuff. While Donald Trump's in court having to defend his liberty, Joe Biden is out there on the stump lying to the American people, trying to deceive them again. And this is exactly what they want. They want a distraction. But it's not working, folks, I'm telling you. At the very least, millions upon millions of people are going to be voting for RFK Jr. And this is what kind of got me thinking, is RFK Jr. a weapon of the Trump campaign? Because if you really think about this, which I have, RFK Jr. really doesn't have any shot at becoming president, but yet he's still running as an independent. And the polls show, and his campaign has to know, that by him staying in the race, all it does is hurt Joe Biden's numbers. Because people don't want to vote for Joe Biden anymore. They don't want to vote for Donald Trump. But they made a huge mistake. I mean, the buyer's remorse with Joe Biden is off the charts right now. And I've told you my anecdotal evidence from the people I know, the Biden voters I know, that they're not voting for Joe Biden again. They don't even like admitting that they voted for him the first time. But they love RFK Jr. And RFK Jr. is out there saying that Joe Biden's the biggest threat to democracy. And so you have to ask yourself, is RFK Jr. part of Donald Trump's campaign strategy? I don't know. And you guys know how I feel about RFK Jr. I think him and Donald Trump would have made a powerhouse ticket. I don't really trust him as far as his radicalness, as far as his ideologies are pretty radical. And I just don't really fully trust him. But as of right now, you got to give him a pat on the back, because he's making Donald Trump look good, and he is soaking up all of Joe Biden's numbers. And so I don't know. We'll see. I'm going to look into it. And something else I was researching was who's funding all these Hamas protests, all these anti-Semitic protests in these colleges. There was somebody that posted on Twitter at Yale and Harvard, I think, these encampments. They're literally setting up encampments at these colleges for protesters to just sit there and camp out and chase down Jews. Like, this is what's happening. And I'm looking at the photo, and I'm like, all of these tents are brand new tents. They're the exact same type of tent, and they're all brand new. So it's like, so somebody's paying for all this. College students, they got money, but not like this. I mean, somebody went out and ordered 100 of the same exact tents. Who spent that money for these Hamas protests? Somebody's funding this. And I guarantee you, I'm looking into it right now, and I'm digging, and I'm trying to find out for you guys. It's not easy, because obviously these people don't want to be found. And the way that these people launder money through different strategies and different levels, it's quite difficult to track down. But this is a pure case of follow the money, and you'll figure out who is funding all this stuff. And somebody's funding it. And I guarantee you there's hundreds of investigative journalists out there right now, you know, the ones that don't have a day job like myself, that are digging into this, and we're going to find out in a few days. Mark my words, in a few days we'll find out exactly who's funding this. In fact, there's a couple investigative journalists that already think they have an idea, but I want to wait. I don't want to make any accusations until we know definitely who's funding all this. All this stuff is happening just months before the election. Doesn't it sound so eerily similar to 2020 and the BLM and Antifa riots? Like, are we going to have cities burning down again in 2020, just like we said on this show months ago? Remember when I told you? I said this. I said they are going to try something. There's going to be some type of protest, because they can't do a pandemic again. Okay? They can't do a pandemic again. They have no pandemic. They have no way of mass printing ballots, even though I don't think any laws changed since then, but that's something we'll save for another show. But I said this. I said they're going to come up with another protest. There's going to be another BLM riot. And I said, keep an eye out. And here we are. You have mass riots all over the country. Some of the most racist, anti-Semitic riots I've ever seen, chanting for terrorist organizations like Hamas. And somebody's funding it. Who's paying for all these signs? Who's paying for these tents? Who's paying for all this stuff? And the colleges and universities need to do more at stopping this. There's a fine line between free speech and hate speech. Like, I don't know, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, kill Jews, death to America, death to the Jews. Like, that, to me, crosses that line. And you look at these mobs They literally have they have torches in the street, like some type of KKK revitalization. They got torches out in the street talking about how they hate Jews. Like, what is going on here, man? And I posted a video on my social media. When you look at all this footage, not only is it obvious that somebody's funding all this, but you look at the people that don't have face coverings on, and they are totally Democrats. All these people voted for Joe Biden in 2020, and if they didn't, they're definitely voting for Joe Biden in 2024. And I made a video for social media where I kind of took still shots of the people in the crowd, and I put an arrow, and I asked my listeners, I asked my followers, who do you think this person's going to vote for? Or who do you think this person's going to vote for? You can just look at people these days, and you know exactly who they're going to vote for. And the one thing I didn't notice in any of these crowds was there's no MAGA hats. Where are all the MAGA hats? If MAGA is so anti-Semitic, if MAGA is so racist, then don't you think there would be more MAGA hats out there chanting from the river to the sea, chanting, death to the Jews, death to Israel? No, these are all Democrat Biden voters. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, this is what Biden is going to give to you for another 4 years. And so we got a lot going on right now, folks, a whole lot. But I think from here on out, I want to dig into some other stories because the Trump thing is going to be every single day. There's going to be stuff going on there. You got a judge and a prosecutor obviously working together, aching to throw Donald Trump in prison. All right. You have this unconstitutional gag order on Donald Trump where he can't defend himself, but yet all these people can attack him on media, on podcasts, on news articles, whatever it is. So they can all attack him, but he can't defend himself. They want Donald Trump to just roll over and take it in the neck. They really do. They're like, why is Donald Trump defending himself? It's like, hello, you're trying to imprison him, and you've targeted him and his family for the last 8 years. I'd be defending myself too. What is he supposed to just roll over? Say, okay, you could send me to prison. Of course not. I'm telling you, folks, we are entering some wild times right now. And I told you it'd get wild. But I didn't expect the pro-Hamas stuff. I really didn't expect the pro-Hamas rallies and the anti-Semitic stuff. I didn't count on that. I didn't expect that. And then it also makes you wonder, could the Biden administration be behind the attacks on Israel? The Hamas attacks? Because these people when you're talking about Jake Sullivan and what's her name? Victoria Nuland, when you're talking about these people, the deep state, the Washington establishment, there are some sick, powerful people inside the bureaucracy of our government. You guys seen the movies? There's movies coming out, it seems like once a year, where some corrupt official inside the government, whether it's through intel agencies or some type of secret government program, some type of bureaucrat that is starting a war in another country, wiping out entire tribes for an oil line. We've seen the movies. There's tons of these types of movies. That happens in real life, folks. Like, there's really people like that out there. So it makes you wonder, was Hamas in some way incentivized by somebody in the Washington bureaucracy to attack Israel, to destabilize the United States just months into an election, the most important election in this nation's history, most likely? Like, this is, when you take it all the way back full circle, this is the type of stuff you have to think about. Well, at least I do. I'm like, okay, so here is the end result of what clearly somebody wants. Somebody's funding it, somebody's planning it, somebody's organizing it. But in order for this to even be happening right now, Hamas would have had to have attacked Israel. So then that makes you ask the question, did somebody in this administration or the bureaucracy incentivize or even orchestrate that attack on Israel by Hamas? We own all these people, folks. We got money. We got undercover informants. We got our little tentacles in all of these countries. You guys heard of Blackwater? We got all kinds of subcontracts, informants. How do you think we killed bin Laden? This is what I'm saying. We got tentacles in all of these little terrorist groups. And I wouldn't be one bit surprised if 10 years down the road it turns out that a Washington bureaucrat or somebody in the intel agency spoke with a undercover informant inside Hamas and offered them a pallet of cash or weapons or a whatever it is, essentially made a deal with Hamas or Iran or Tehran to attack Israel, so that with that attack, they would then be able to protest here and destabilize the United States. That is the road I'm going down. I think it's a lot bigger than what people think. I think this is a lot more orchestrated than what people think. Clearly, what the Democrats think. These people think all of this is just organic and that there is no Washington bureaucracy, there is no deep state, there is no Washington establishment, that all these politicians are just elected by their constituents and they're just there to represent the people. And that they're just there for the betterment of humanity. No, all these people in Washington, a very large majority, are crooked. There is massive amounts of blackmail going on politicians so that they can get deals, so that people can get what they want. There is hundreds of billions of dollars that goes to corruption into people's pockets. All these politicians don't get rich off of book deals, folks. All these people are rich for a reason. Look at Ukraine. Have you ever seen so much excitement for foreign aid spending to Ukraine, the most corrupt country on the face of the planet? And that is something I want to get into on the next episode, where a bureaucrat at the CIA named William Burns made a secret trip over to Ukraine to warn them that they need to stop stealing so much of the taxpayers' money, because the American people are starting to see it, and if they don't stop, then the money flow is going to stop. So essentially, you had a CIA agent, a top official from the CIA, William Burns, go over to Ukraine secretly on a secret trip to warn Zelensky and the oligarchy that they're taking too much money out of the war funds, out of the military funding. They're spending too much money, they're stealing too much money. And that's what all that drama was with Zelensky firing people, is because the people accused Zelensky of taking more than what he was supposed to. And so they started taking more. And so there is all this corruption going on over in Ukraine. And our politicians thought it was a great idea to send another $95 billion. Folks, it is a giant money laundering machine that's going on. And it's our tax dollars that are being laundered. This is so much corruption. There's such a bigger picture. And this is the type of stuff that I want to start getting into. I want to start digging deep into all of this stuff. But it just takes time for me to do the research. And so I'm going to look into this. This is what we're going to talk about on the next show. I want hard facts that I can give you about this character, William Burns. There was a tweet that David Sachs put out yesterday that was talking about the spoils of the Zelensky war. And I wanted to get into that article. I just haven't had time to read it. But I have heard about this story before, and it's on all of our minds. In the back of our minds, we know that this money's going towards corruption. It's almost like they have to send so much money to make up for the money that goes towards corruption. And so it's like our government, our Congress knows that if we send $50 billion, that 25 of it's going to go towards corruption. And so that only 25 is actually going to make it towards weaponry. And so that's why they have to send such large amounts. And so that more money actually makes it into defending Ukraine instead of all the pockets of the oligarchy. There is so much money that's being thrown around, folks. This is why the United States wants war. And this is exactly why they do not want Donald Trump. It all goes around full circle, folks. All of this stuff that's happening, this weaponization, this politicization of the justice system, this targeting and persecution of Donald Trump, has nothing to do with Donald Trump being president per se. It has everything to do with Donald Trump and what he's going to do when he gets in there. The first outsider this country has ever had since George Washington. The 4 years that he was in, there was peace and prosperity breaking out all across the world. to a point to where Middle Eastern countries were actually shocked that Donald Trump was not nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. The first time ever, the first time in my lifetime that there was a president that didn't get us into a new war. This is why they want to destroy him. This is why they want to politically assassinate him. This is why they want to keep him out of the White House. Not because of their hatred for him. Well, that's probably a lot of the Democrat politicians. But for the military-industrial complex and for the intel agencies, it's what he's going to expose and it's what he's going to stop is what they're scared of. They're not fighting on behalf of the Democrats to keep Donald Trump out of office. That's just what they tell their constituents. Oh, we're fighting to keep, Donald Trump, the new Adolf Hitler, from coming into the White House. No. That's all a scam. That's all a sham. It's a mirage. Their modus operandi, the real motive behind keeping Donald Trump out of office is so that he doesn't expose the military-industrial complex and the entire corrupt temple and bring it down on their heads. That's why they don't like him. You guys, they impeached him for a phone call with Zelensky when he was on the hot trail of Biden's corruption. Immediately. It's never happened in U.S. history that a president was impeached for a phone call. And you look at the transcripts and you're like, there's nothing wrong with this. There's nothing wrong with this. Not only that, but just weeks later, a video surfaces of Joe Biden committing a quid pro quo, holding up aid, threatening aid to Ukraine if a Ukrainian prosecutor isn't fired. That is exactly what they impeached Donald Trump for, was it not? So, ladies and gentlemen, all of this stuff goes so much deeper than what a lot of people see on the surface. And it's just a matter of getting down to the nitty-gritty and following all these trails to their eventual beginning. And it takes time, and it's really hard to do, and it gets really complex. And so I want to work on this Ukraine story of William Burns. I wanted to share this with you because I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to the bottom of it. But we're going to get into it on the next episode, and I wanted you to know that the whole thing is all connected, folks. The protests in New York City in these colleges and universities, the weaponization and the persecution of Donald Trump, the Hillary Clinton coming out, Barack Obama disappearing and nowhere to be found, all these people are all working together to prevent Donald Trump from getting into office. Is because Donald Trump is going to expose this entire corrupt corporation that has been running our country for the last 60, 70 years. All right? This is why it feels like we're in this endless cycle. You all know exactly what I'm talking about. When we go to work every single day and we pay taxes, but we don't know where our tax money's going. We know our government's corrupt, we just can't see it. And we hear about it, but we don't ever see it. Like, we know all this stuff is happening within the walls of our government, the bureaucracy, but we feel like it's so big and complex that we can't defend against it. Well, it's all real. All of us have the same feeling, and it's there for a reason, because this is one gigantic corrupt system, all right? And Donald Trump is the biggest threat that this system has ever had. It is the military-industrial complex that Dwight D. Eisenhower warned us back in 1961. When he said that if the American people do not get a hold of this military-industrial complex that was forming under his watch, then it would be the military-industrial complex that not only controls this country, but would also be the demise of this country. And that is exactly what we're watching right now. The interests of people involved in our government bureaucracy are prioritized over the American people, the people they're supposed to be serving. We have a government of Washington bureaucrats that no longer serve the people. In fact, it's actually polar opposite. They have reached this level in government that these people actually believe, they feel as if you should be serving them. And so that they can take your tax dollars and you should not say a word. And they can use your tax dollars for whatever they want, and they don't have to give you a reason. All right? They don't have to pay their debt. They don't have to pay their bills. But you do. You go 1 year without paying your taxes to the IRS, and they will take everything from you. This government has turned into some type of Frankenstein mafia. This is why they called them government gangsters. That was Kash Patel, wrote a book called Government Gangsters. That's what we're watching. We're watching this out-of-control rogue government turn into a mob. It turned into the mafia. These people are gangsters. And they're taking our money. They're doing what they want with it. They're conducting wars. They're killing innocent people. And they're just like, they're jumping into this massive pool of cash and coming out with fistfuls. It's like a giant party to them. And they know Donald Trump is there to crash their party. And that's exactly why we must get him into office. You guys want to see some incredible stuff? You guys want to see an incredible turnaround, a complete 180 of this country? You guys want to see peace and prosperity almost instantaneously? Elect Donald Trump, and you will get your country back. That is a promise. I'm telling you, you're going to see the truth. Elect Donald Trump, and you will see exactly what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the government bureaucracy. He is going to expose all of it. I'm telling you, this guy is the biggest threat that these people have ever had. And what they're trying to do is convince the people that Donald Trump's a threat to them, that Donald Trump's a threat to the people. No. Donald Trump is a threat to them, to their system, to their corrupt club, to their organization, to their mafia. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, that's all for today. Like I said, I'm going to be working on a couple stories. This William Burns from the CIA story I wanted to get into, so I'm going to go ahead and get into that. If you want to support the show, please download this podcast, and most of all, share the podcast with your friends and family. You can find it on any podcast platform. In fact, all you really have to do is just type in my name in your search engine, Steven Tauriello. That's Steven with the V, Tauriello, and you'll find all my social media. And you'll find the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You'll find it everywhere. And also, most of all, follow the show on Rumble. I post every episode on Rumble. And if you want to get a hold of me directly to give me any leads, or you just want to ask me something or whatever it is, send me an email directly at steventaurielloshow@gmail.com. And as always, thank you guys so much for tuning into the show. I want you guys to have a good day. Have a great week. I'll talk to you guys soon. God bless you, and God bless America. You guys have a good one. Bye-bye.